Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to the Front Movie Reviews, the podcast for people who actually like movies and TV. And welcome to episode 6 of Discovering Star Trek, where we are looking at every episode of Star Trek Discovery for better or worse. And depending on who you ask, it's better or worse. And judging by the conversation Mike and I had offline, I think we're going to flip the tables every single week, which is going to be funny. I am Scott, and with me is
Mike
and
Kevin.
There he is. Kevin is the prodigal son returning after several weeks of not watching the episodes and not joining us. And Blake
I watched
the episodes. You watched the episodes. Yeah. We had to watch the Cubs do terrible like me, but I was watching.
Yeah. I
was watching on game day, so yeah. And Blake will be back with us when he decides to be back with us. So we're looking at episode 6, which is Lethe, and I'm going to go ahead and skip on the synopsis because I think at this point, if you have not watched the episode, you probably should because we're going to spoil the hell out of it. So we'll just kind of dive right in to our first reactions to it. And since Kevin's been gone for a while, I'll put him on the spot. Kevin, first reactions to Lethe.
Well, I continue to like James Freen as Sarek quite a bit. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. I really enjoyed the battle simulation towards the beginning of the episode. I thought that was excellent, kind of visually stunning. I continue to be impressed by the production values of the episodes. I really thought that they weren't going to be putting in the kind of money and to make this series visually stunning, and I think it has been at most times. I'm still a little frustrated with some of the writing. Some of it's great, some of it isn't. But I really want to like this series, and I do, but not completely. And I'm hoping that it continues to evolve and changing it better.
Mike, what do you think?
I liked this episode quite a bit. I know, from our offline conversation that there are some continuity issues that did even jump out at me as I was watching it, but I think maybe just depending on where we come from, like I have a different perspective on the whole, like where it fits in the continuity and what things I'm willing to let go. In sort of in the name of they had to do this to make it fit or to make it appealing or whatever. Overall, I really liked it. I think a lot of the things we'll talk about maybe more towards predictions, but a lot of the things about this episode that I in particular, I'm going to say right now that I really like, because it's all stuff that I think they're building up to. If my predictions turn out to be wrong, then I'm going to go back and give this episode like a -5 score. So I think this was an episode that did a lot of an equal part worth of explaining some things we've already seen and making me feel more comfortable with it. Long distance phone calls, and at the same time was a big foundational episode for some things that I think we're going to start to see later on that have factored into previous predictions, and some stuff that we skipped talking about in maybe the last episode that I think are valid, like what's up with Mr. Ash. So
yeah, I think I was thinking about the Ash thing when we were doing our last episode, and I completely blanked on actually bringing it up. But we'll definitely talk about Ash this week because
I was going to say, for those of you watching at home, the truth of this is we're filming this thing literally like while I'm still watching the credits on my other monitor. So sometimes we don't manage to squeeze in all of the thoughts that we have.
Sometimes we don't have enough thoughts to squeeze. So
yeah, well.
So
been about an hour long each, so I think that's not true. But
this episode pissed me off.
There you go.
Okay. It was a fine episode. I will go into what I liked and what I didn't like, but my problem is I can't turn my my nerd radar off. And because I know way too much about Star Trek, every time they poke at me a little bit with continuity, and they haven't done it lately, but this one was heavy on it. And when they change things or try to retcon things, which they retconned a lot in this episode, in some parts of this episode, they just said, screw it, we're just going to pretend it was always there when it's not. Holodecks. Because holodecks definitely aren't around at this point, but now they are. So
it's the most advanced ship, Scott.
Shut up. Most advanced ship is captained by Captain Pike. We found that out last episode.
Apparently not.
And apparently Michael is older than Spock, which, oh God. But so my problem has been with this episode is every time I'm trying to get into it, I get slapped in the face with continuity, and so I get pissed off, and then I have to calm down and realize it's just a show, and then I start getting into it again, and then they show me a holodeck, and then I have to calm down again, and then they start talking about Katras, and they screw that up, and then I have to calm down again. So
you'd really rather they just stopped trying to throw in Easter eggs for you because they're really just shattering on your front door is what
the Easter eggs are smelly and they've been around too long and they're starting to annoy me. And I really wish this TV show took place 40 years after DS9 and I wouldn't care anymore. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's go into stuff we like now that I bitched about the episode for a while. And with that, before we do that, I see we do have some viewers. Hi. The live chat is going, so if you want to interject and tell us how stupid we are or how smart we are or have any questions about it for us, do that through the live chat, and we will definitely answer them as long as we can without, being weird.
I'm not going to read it.
I have it up. So let's go ahead and start talking about things we liked, and we'll go to Mike first.
Yeah, so I guess I rambled and jumped out of turn a little bit, but so what I was saying there is I felt like this was an episode that was playing into a lot of theories that I've read online about certain characters and their motives and some of our predictions that you've already heard. Like, I think every one of us has basically said that we think Lorca is, gonna go rogue at some point
sure that was confirmed.
for some reason. And so this episode definitely started to lean towards that a little bit more. And so I am overall with this episode very excited based on the belief that they are setting things up for later to be, to pace story and do cool twists and turns. And, it feels like right now it's good writing. We'll see if it actually is or not. It really it's going to take till the end of the season before we find out whether this was, they were coincidentally making me feel good about this episode or not.
Yeah. Okay, Kevin.
I have to say I really was enjoying the really what amounts to 50-year-old character development on the part of Sarek and Spock. Getting it, and that probably drove you nuts, Scott. I can see it on your face, but I thought it was pretty great. I thought it was. All right, let me back up. I still don't like that Sarek is part of the show. I wish they had gone outside of, the people and characters that we already knew as Star Trek fans. But given the fact that they have done that, I really liked the character development going at the root of the original series era feud between Sarek and his son. I thought that was very interesting. The holodeck thing, it looked like a kind of rudimentary holodeck. I don't think he would have been able to interact other than just a shooting gallery with it. I'm sure that's probably what the writers had thinking, but I can understand. I even was joking at the size of the shuttle being larger than a next gen size shuttle, let alone a prior to original series size. But I'm trying to turn my nerd off just a little bit because I know the continuity stuff is going to get really heavy if we go into it too much. We got to keep in mind that it's 50 years after the first show debuted, but I'm usually the first one to have problems with that. So. But the Katra thing was terrible. The Katra thing was absolutely terrible.
Thank you.
Katra has huge powers. Come on.
Well, and
That's
it's
a big
also
thing.
able to communicate long distances now.
Yeah.
I'll get into that when we start talking about things we didn't like. But first, let me talk about things I liked. It took me a long time to get there because the writers were waiting to make that their they were waiting for us to do their little twist at the end with Spock. And so for the entire time, I'm thinking, no way in hell is this guy having his last thoughts be about Michael when we know right now he's still torn about being about disowning Spock, and it's going to be another 10 years until we take that little journey to Babel and we get them to reconcile. So right now, as a father, he should be really lamenting the fact that he's not been able to bring Spock back into a relationship with him. So his last thought should be about that. Of course, at the very end, we find out that actually is kind of the case. But because I was thinking that the whole time, again, it was me having to calm myself to get to that point. And so for anyone who, doesn't know TOS and doesn't know the Sarek and Spock relationship, it's fine. And you think, oh, okay. But I mean, if you're sitting there thinking, man, I've watched TOS way too many times, it's kind of annoying. I'm with Kevin on this. I continue to like the special effects. I mean, just even seeing that shuttle take off from Vulcan at the beginning looked theatrical. This does not look like a TV show. They are definitely putting some money into it, and I appreciate that. Probably helps that they could render stuff for almost a year while they were waiting for the show to be done, so they had plenty of time. Mm-hmm. I like the interactions on the ship with the crew. I think we're starting to get to know these folks for better or worse. We're starting to get to know Larka and how much of an asshole he is and how much he's just committed treason. We're starting to understand where Michael's coming from, although I still am kind of questioning if she's a good actress or not. Watching her run down the corridor there, and no one runs like that. But
Tom Cruise.
Okay, Tom Cruise. True. Okay, I'll give you that one, sir. But so no, I mean there was some very good things going on, and I did enjoy all that. It's just, Mike, you said it. The Easter eggs were really pulling me out of this episode.
Yeah.
So I have to come to terms with that before we get to our scores, and I'm going to try. Anything else we want to talk about that we liked about this episode?
Not really. I mean, I'll just acknowledge, I think, again, the character interactions for me, continue to be the strongest part of the writing in this show. And I really, I don't know why I'm talking about it like we're not going to, I'm trying to hide spoilers. Like the whole mystery about whether Ash is a spy of some kind or whatever, I think.
Oh, he's so a spy.
Oh,
he's
totally.
So, you're human.
They're handling it. They're handling it very cleverly. And we'll say this too, with the Lorca thing, we kind of started off thinking that he's just going to be this like crazy warmonger out for revenge. I feel like the way that they're spinning all of these things it's muddy. They're all of these things are muddy, right?
Yeah.
There are things that happened in this episode with Ash, between Ash and Michael and Tilly, where you're kind of like, man, if he's a spy, like I kind of like him. Same thing with Lorca. I almost felt like it's a little bit sympathetic towards him now. He's messed up. He's got PTSD in the worst possible way, and he's out there maybe thinking he's doing his duty, not just like some crazy lunatic out for blood. And I think ultimately whether these foreshadowing things pan out or not, again, it's going to affect how I ultimately feel about this whole situation. But if it's going that direction, if it's going the direction even remotely the way that I think it is, I really like how they're doing it. I really like that they're keeping it from being super like dead obvious, one-sided. The writing is smart.
Yeah, well, and with Lorca, I'm starting to really like his characterization, not his character, because he is an asshole. But I like what they're doing here. They're making the anti-Kirk is exactly what they're doing. And the conversation that the Admiral and he had before they got down to the dirty business, that's a conversation that Kirk would have had. I'm here on the front lines. Sometimes your orders are stupid, so I'm going to do what I need to do. Kirk did that every episode.
Yeah.
So if it was Kirk saying that, we'd be okay with it because Kirk's not going to send his admiral off to die when he knows she's going to die. But I do like that they're kind of showing us that this is something that, we all were for this for 50 years. We were for this. And now here's what happens when a guy uses it not for not for good, but for, his own needs. And we also learn never touch a dude's scars. He's going to blast your head off. A couple of things before we move into what we didn't like. We have some stuff on the chat that I want to hit up. Claire said episode 6 is really awesome and Lorca is definitely from the mirror universe. Do you guys agree with that?
I've seen that theory, and I don't know that I buy it. I would actually at this point be disappointed if that's what it turns out to be. Like, I'm much more interested in the idea that the character of Lorca is, as the Admiral said, like a broken man.
Yeah. He's commanding
it's definitely a different Star Trek experience to have both a captain and a main character who are not completely people that you would trust.
Yeah.
But as far as them being from the mirror universe, I hope not. I can't see how that would really play into what going.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at John on the chat. I'll get to him in a minute. That's good, John. Thank you. Sorry, Kevin.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I need to not look at the chat when you guys are talking. I don't think he's Mirror Universe because I think what I just said about him portraying the anti-Kirk would be meaningless if they went with the Mirror Universe piece. I think Stamets has made a connection with the Mirror Universe, and if you've noticed, Stamets' character changed. I don't think he is from the Mirror Universe, but I think he's connected with his counterpart, and he's being a little bit more goofy than what he was. So another one is John. First off, he says, as soon as Discovery is over, I'm canceling CBS All Access. It's the only thing I'm watching on CBS. Are you guys thinking the same as me? Well,
Yes.
Mike just signed up for his monthly free trial. So.
You're not. Don't out me like that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll be honest. I've been watching Wings.
Nice. I forgot all about Wings. Probably. I don't think there's any other shows coming down the pipeline that are going to interest me, and there's way too many streaming services out there. I mean, when the Disney streaming services comes on in 2019, with my household, that would have to come before CBS. So I think I'll be one of those guys who drops off when the show it goes on a hiatus and come back and drop off and come back and drop off.
I'm not the right guy to ask because I barely watch anything on TV anyway. I really cherry pick my shows.
And here's what John said that made me chuckle. I can't wait until a Tribble and Ash come into contact.
Yeah,
I agree.
I thought the exact same thing, and I'm like, you know what? I'll say it again. I'm like, if they were really driving towards that eventuality, putting the Tribble on Lorca's desk in episode 3 was freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
It's Chekhov's Tribble. It's there. You have to use it next.
Yep. So
we agree, John. We want to see some hot Tribble Ash action. I think we're going to get some hot Ash Michael action, which is those two characters are so wooden, it's not even funny. But okay, let's go ahead and go into some things we don't like. And again, if you want to add to it, just add to the chat there. And we will definitely read, for better or worse, what you're saying. So let's go to Kevin. What are some things that you did not like about this episode?
All right. First of all, what was with the ridiculously stupid shirts that say disco on them?
Oh, well, I was waiting for the. Sorry.
What would the 1701 shirt say? Enter? That's so.
I was waiting. Two things. When they're running down the hallway, I was waiting because it was kind of blurry on my stream because my stream was acting up. So I was waiting to see Tally say disco and Michael saying overy, which didn't happen. But then I was waiting for the camera to pan around. I was like, if they say overy on their backs, I'm going to be really pissed off. And no, their backs were clean. But yeah, they like the disco. I don't know. They can come back.
I already mentioned that I can't stand what they did with Katra's thing as healing powers, long distance phone calls.
Yeah.
I didn't like the stretch with the Vulcans radicalizing and bombing, I thought it was too much of a hollow attempt to make a comparison at contemporary world politics. I thought it was kind of a lazy. It is nice that they're trying to get into the internal politics of Vulcans that they started with Enterprise, but I didn't think it was done well.
No. Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. I think obviously the writers are trying to make an allegory to what's going on right now in terms of foreign relations, in terms of religious zealots and everything else. But I don't see a Vulcan being a suicide bomber, period.
No.
I think there are other logical ways to get your point across than blowing yourself up to blow up a shuttle. And I think that is completely against what the Vulcans are. If you want this to make this a Romulans, perfect sense. They would do it in a heartbeat. But it's very much not what the Vulcans are for. And I agree that some people are probably going to say, well, a culture isn't completely the same all around. I mean, you have to have people who are a little different. Fine. But that is so far off what we know of the Vulcans, it really just pulled me out of the episode right away. It was one of the major things that really ticked me off about this episode was the suicide bomber.
I agree.
And I know I'm jumping in on your turn, but it doesn't even make sense to me because the whole notion of a suicide bomber is making somebody a martyr for the cause, but becoming a martyr is an emotional thing. So whether you're a radical logicist, I don't know, logic.
They're into logistics.
A radical logic guy, then you're supposed to be the exact opposite of what a martyr would, do for anybody. So yeah, I agree. And also it was a really filthy callback to Iron Man 3. So
he was definitely rocking the extremists.
Yes. So I just wanted to back that point up that was also very frustrating. And I for one did kind of appreciate them trying to introduce the notion that Vulcans aren't all this perfect society. But I agree with what you guys said. It was just a very heavy-handed, sloppy attempt at it.
And so Vulcans do lie because Sarek lied about the reasoning behind her not getting into the Vulcan fleet. So I don't like that continuity problem either. That's why the writing is frustrating me, because in some ways I think it's great. You mentioned the personal interactions on the ship being really good. I agree with that. But some of the overarching issues don't seem to be completely well thought out. And I think they even have a continuity error in this episode. They didn't really explain how they got the spore drive working again without, half killing somebody. And I went back just to make sure. We talked about this offline. I went back just to make sure they did use it. So
I looked also. And in fact, there was even that brief bit of dialogue between Lorca and Stamets in the very next scene, kind of throwing a casual reference at it.
Stamets learned that he liked having his nipples tweaked, so it's okay.
Correct.
It's fine.
That is exactly what I heard. He's like, I am into the SMN. Yeah, I just messed up my own joke. Go on. S&M stuff. There you go.
Yeah. So, Mike, what do you got?
In terms of things I don't like, I'm going to go easier on this episode than I think you guys did. But for the most part, the main thing that kind of bothered me with this episode was A, the lack of an explanation about the spore drive, and B, the kind of heavy-handed storyline with the Vulcan radicalists and the whole Katra thing. I don't claim to be the TOS expert or to know everything there is to know about the Katra deal, but that whole link psychically between Michael and Sarek just bothers me, and I'm relieved that it hasn't happened as frequently as I feared that it would after the first two episodes. But here it was again. So that's all I got to say about it.
That's all I got to say about that. Some of this is going to be nitpicky, and it's going to go back to the continuity stuff. But I will also hit on some stuff that actually, is not nitpicky, I promise. But first nitpicky. We even get told in this episode that Spock defied his father to join Starfleet, and that's unheard of for a Vulcan to do. And before that, about 15 minutes before that, we had a Vulcan admiral. It is made very clear in the TOS, in Journey to Babel, for one, which is the episode with Sarek and Spock getting back together. Spock is the first Vulcan to join Starfleet.
Yeah.
Period. And the joke is, well, the Vulcans are still okay because he's half human, so it's not a problem.
Yep.
So why do we have a Vulcan admiral? And there's no reason for him to be Vulcan aside from we just wanted to stick pointy ears on the dude. All you had to do was make him any other kind of admiral and you're fine. But that's the kind of stuff that pulls me out of the episode. If you have fans in the writer's room, which you say you do, these fans aren't fans the way that need to be to actually be in a writer's room. These need to be the diehard guys.
They're fans of A series or something. Yeah.
Well, that's great. But if you're going to say you're going to be, you're going to respect continuity, that's a big one. It's not like, okay, I can argue maybe the holodeck was never seen on TOS and they actually had it. Fine, great. We were told Spock was the only Vulcan in Starfleet.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing that, again, it takes me out of the episode for 10 minutes while I got to calm my nerd rage down to get back into it. I already mentioned that I agree with Kevin on the suicide bomber piece. Kevin, you also mentioned this a little bit too, but I'm going to go into a little bit more rage on this one, and that is the Katra. No, this is not how the Katra works for several reasons. One, humans can't control it. I don't care how logical you are and how trained you are. So it's not only that she can control it without going freaking crazy every time, like McCoy did. McCoy went batshit. Star Trek 3, folks, which is an odd one, Edric, and Star Trek 3 is good. Edric pointed out in the chat that there was an illogical Vulcan in Final Frontier, which was Cybok, and I said we don't count Final Frontier as a movie, so it's okay. and then he said, "Well, I forgot odd movies don't exist. Search for Spock exists. It's a good one." And Search for Spock made it very clear the Katra is not it's not call and collect. It is something that is embedded in you until it's taken out of you. Period. That's it. McCoy was not talking to Spock or talking to Sarek or anything like that. And sure as hell, McCoy could not transfer the Katra himself, which is what, and it didn't help to heal things either, which is what Michael did at the end when she healed Sarek enough for him to hit the big yellow button. All that stuff, it strikes me as they realized in the pilot episode that they made a mistake by having the mind meld be long distance, and so they turned around and said, we'll make it the Katra instead, because that's what people don't really know about as much. No, it's been pretty defined. That just doesn't work. So again, nerd rage is going on that one, and it's little stuff like that. You can write better. You can find different ways for you to do this without having to completely throw retcon and change everything that we've already done.
Right.
Let's see what we got here. Edric says he thought Lorca was going to kill the Admiral in his room. I thought so too. I thought she was getting a neck break right then. I thought as soon as she turns around, he's just going to go up and go, ta-da! So he's a little smarter than I am, I guess.
I was going to say, there again, I'm glad that they're showing his character to be not so single-minded as to go and just do the first most deliberate thing. He's not like Michael at all in that way.
I bet he can run right too. And then John says Star Trek at its core has always been about hopeful future, but during times of war, the hopeful future is ripped away. DS9 had that, but we had time to get to know the crew before the Dominion War. I agree. I don't think any of us are arguing that the characterizations are wrong. I think what the writers have told us in interviews is this is showing us how Starfleet got its morality. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them learning how to be the Starfleet we know. I just think that the writers could do a little better job writing that story than they are right now. And I think they're digging themselves a bigger hole if they're going to, if as they told us, they're going to make this work in continuity with being a prequel, and they're going to make it all work, Discovery has to go away because it's not the most advanced ship in the fleet 10 years from now. The Spore Drive has to go away because it's never talked about ever again. We're never going to hear about long-distance communication with Katras. Vulcan suicide bombers have to go away. So this is the kind of stuff that they need to be very careful of. And I think they're trying to be too cute. I think they're trying to give us a lot of Easter eggs to make us happy. And in doing so, you're pissing me off.
I think in the end they're going to play this card of, well, the Discovery was a Black Ops ship on a Black Ops mission, and it all gets swept under the rug, and that's why you never hear about it. But at the same time, they're making it a bigger and bigger and bigger thing to try and fit under that rug.
Yeah. But another one of those, and this will be really brief because I'm ranting now, but they mentioned flat out Michael was the biggest known thing in terms of Vulcan-human relations. Larka said that. Yeah, everyone knows your past and how Sarek picked you up and raised you. Okay, I don't know that, and it seems like no one cares about it 10 years from now. So be very careful, kids. And I know I'm being a pain in the ass, Mike. I know.
No, I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I guess I can just say that I just feel like that's a little bit true to life in a way. I mean, stuff that happened in the 90s, no one 10 years later gives two craps about, but it was on every TV station. I mean, who's going to know O.J. Simpson in a few years? You know what I mean?
Well, if they keep making specials about him.
Well, okay. Bad example, but you get my meaning. So.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Maybe Michael Sarek and that whole thing was a big deal at a point in time, but everybody's eventually going to get over it, and it's going to just be forgotten.
I did like the little thing that the Vulcan admiral who shouldn't be there pointed out is that Sarek has a way of getting other races to talk to each other. That was a direct reference to the fact that Sarek's going to be an ambassador for the Federation. I like that little stuff. That stuff that leads into the continuity and doesn't screw anything up. It's just like, haha, hint, hint. Mm-hmm. That stuff's okay. But, okay, nerd rant over. Anything that we missed that we want to talk about that we didn't like before we go into our final thoughts and scores? And then we'll definitely talk about predictions, where I think we'll talk about Ashman as well, too.
I'm sure we'll think of a bunch of stuff in 10 minutes after we click the close button on this. But no, I think that covers most of what I had.
Same with me.
If there was anything else, those in the chat room who that you didn't like about the episode or liked about the episode, let us know and we'll go back to it. But let's talk about our final thoughts and go into our scores, and we'll do both as I call out your name. For those of you who are just joining us, we give these episodes a score of 1 through 10. And with that, we compare it with other Star Trek episodes in the franchise. So a 5 score would be an average Star Trek episode. A 10 would be one of the best Star Trek episodes of all time, like All Good Things or Pale Moonlight or anything like that. At least that's for me. And then a 1 would be Threshold, Cat's Paw, Code of Honor, things of that nature. So we'll go to Kevin first. Give us your final thoughts and also your score, sir.
Well, I'm going to start with my score, if you don't mind. I'm going to say I'm going to go 5, but I really want to go 4. It was an episode that I wanted to like a lot more. And now as we're talking about it and you're pointing out even more continuity issues and even more sloppy writing, it's like,
I'm sorry for ruining the episode for everybody.
No, not at all, because I already loving it. But I feel like the writing could be so much better. I think that's my biggest takeaway from the last couple of weeks is the writing really could be better. I think I really enjoy the Lorca character. I really enjoy the portrayal by the actor. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Jason
I know
Isaacs.
You guys know it.
Yeah, Isaacs.
Yeah, Jason Isaacs. I really enjoy his portrayal. I'm interested to see where this goes, but I'm worried that as one of the two of you, I think it was Mike, pointed out, they're kind of boxing themselves in.
So we got a 5, almost 4 from Kevin. Mike, what do you got?
I'm just going to give it a solid 5. I don't think there's anything in this episode that was of a particular wow factor. I think it was very middle of the road. It was very much a foundational piece, setting the stage for some future developments. But at the same time, it wasn't bad in my mind. I'm very forgiving about a lot of the continuity stuff, due maybe in large part to the fact that there are certain series I haven't seen, like Enterprise. But yeah, I think it was just kind of there. Nothing jumped out at me as super bad. Nothing jumped out at me as super good. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've been scoring Discovery rather highly lately. I've been enjoying the series. I think it's got a long way to go, but being the first season, and Blake points this out a lot when he's on, no Star Trek show was able to pull what Discovery's pulling off in the first season. So I think we need to give it some props for that. That being said, I do think this was a weaker episode, and I think many of the reasons that it's weak for me personally is what I've already discussed. So I'm going to say it's an average episode. I don't think it was a bad episode. I just think it's one of those where it will not pop up in my radar again unless Discovery makes it pop up in my radar again when they reference it. But aside from that, I think it's just an average Star Trek episode, which is not bad. But it is the lowest rank I've given to a Discovery episode so far. Let's go ahead and start talking about predictions that we have. A couple of things, too, have come over the chat room. I think we'll discuss this a bit. Edrix asked, do we think this whole series is based in the Mirror Universe?
We'll talk about that. I really did.
And then John asks, what do we think about Amanda, who is played by Mia Kirshner? I think Mia Kirshner doesn't age. I just looked her up. She's 42, and the girl looks just like she did 15 years ago when I saw her the last time in a show. And then John also says, you should watch Enterprise. I like it, even though I know a lot of people hate it. John, I'm with you. I think Enterprise
I am great. Too.
I think season 1 sucked. But
yeah, I am actually more motivated than ever to try and watch Enterprise now.
Much like Babylon 5, which I talk about a lot in this show, you have to muddle through season 1 and just go with it. Season 2 picks up. Season 3 is really good. And season 4 is some of the best Star Trek ever put out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's so depressing about Enterprise is when Manny Coto took over Enterprise, he was also well known for 24, when 24 was good. When Manny Coto took over Enterprise, he turned it completely around. Rick Berman and not Ronald D. Moore, Rick Berman and
Brandon Braga.
Thank you, Brandon Braga. They both kind of stepped back until the final episode, and let Makoto kind of run with it, and he did an excellent job. And so I do like Enterprise a lot. But let's go ahead and just talk in general about predictions. Mike, I know you had quite a bit you wanted to throw out there, so go for it.
I mean, I think it's kind of obvious stuff. I think as much as I think it's actually a really interesting idea that the whole series up till now might have taken place in the Mirror Universe, and that would potentially explain away some of the continuity things we've seen. I feel like that's probably more bold than this show will go. I say that based on, even though they've twisted people in pretzels and done other crazy stuff that I didn't think I'd see either. So, we'll see. I'll sit on the edge of my seat and wait for that one. But I mean, I do think we're going to find out that Ash is in some way a spy. I do think that the prediction about Lorca going rogue is going to happen, although I'm at this point, I can say honestly that I'm pretty fascinated about seeing that happen and seeing the what, the where, and the why. I think we're getting a small taste of it in this episode that, he's a broken dude who's been through a hell of a lot and probably had a little bit of stuff going on with him in the first place. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, and just to kind of hit on the Ash thing a little bit more, I know we probably should have brought it up last episode, but it just completely slipped my mind.
Me too, yeah.
But there had been some talks when the show was coming up that there was some oddball actors that were in the show, and one of the big ones that no one kind of knew what was going on was Vogue, who is the albino Klingon. and actually the character changed in the middle of production and all that good stuff. Voke is supposedly played by Javid Iqbal. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Iqbal. Here's the thing. Javid Iqbal has absolutely no other credits on IMDb except for Voke, the Klingon. No credits at all. The dude is just appeared out of nowhere. But he looks fascinatingly like Shazid Latif, who plays Ash Tyler, to a point where Shazad Latif was asked, is it true that you're also playing Voke? And he's like, this comes from Trek Movie. When we asked Latif whether he's heard the fans are speculating about whether Iqbal is a real actor or not, he responds, well, yeah, if you check IMDb, he's an actor on Star Trek Discovery. And then he said, then we asked Latif whether he's ever had a chance to meet Iqbal, and that's when the CBS publicist cut in with a cheery, sorry, we're out of time, before the actor could answer. So I'm pretty sure they're pulling a trouble with tribbles. And Voke was told by his Klingon girlfriend, who also was the captain who tortured Ash and tortured Larka and Mud, who will be back next episode, it seems. She told him, you're going to have to give up everything to do this. You're going to have to completely give up everything you are and in order to make the Klingon Empire united. And
remember, I think that her house is one of spies.
Yes. She is known for being a spy, and that's how she speaks perfect English. And even the Admiral who now is probably going to get a bat lift to the gut sooner or later in this show, was saying, have you even checked this guy out? And Larka's like, yeah, he's from Seattle. The guy playing Ash is playing it too cute by a little bit too. Like, you're human. That's why you feel that way and all that. So I'm with you, Mike, and I'm with everyone who has this conspiracy theory on the internet. Voke is Ash, and sooner or later we're going to have a tribble tell us that.
I wasn't even quite willing to make the connection that those two characters are the same person, but he's definitely a spy of some kind. And in fact, I meant to write these down as I was watching the episode, and I didn't do it. But if you rewatch it with that in mind, there are at least 3 or 4 little conversational nuggets dropped in here and there that are foreshadowing bits.
Well, and actually, and this is why we probably should have talked about last week, when they're on the transporter pad on the last episode, Larka says, welcome to the Discovery, and Voke/Ash says, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, sir. Well, obviously, because you planned this. And John makes a good point. Ash has to be Voke. I just hate that we figured it out so soon. I agree with that. And I think that's the one problem with the internet is I honestly would not have made the connection to Voke unless IO9, who really hates the show, the writer over at IO9 really hates the show. But she pointed out, without even a spoiler tag, oh, yeah, by the way, it's played by the same actor. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. That makes it easy for me. But yeah. So, Mike, did you have any other predictions?
No, I think that's pretty much it. And I actually agree exactly with what you said. I don't think that the writing necessarily is, in this regard, bad or anything. And I do kind of hate that we figured it out, but I also can't say that I would have necessarily figured it all out had I not been on Facebook. So,
and as much as I can complain about continuity, this one doesn't tick me off because it's happened before. The Klingons are known for putting human-looking spies into the Federation. I'm okay with this. Completely okay with this.
Yeah.
Kevin, what do you got for predictions?
Well, this isn't so much of a prediction, but just more because I wasn't on last week's show. I really enjoy Rainn Wilson as an actor. I really enjoyed his portrayal as Harry Mudd, and I'm really looking forward to him being back next week because any chance I have to see Rainn Wilson act is always something I'm going to enjoy because his portrayal on The Office is just one of my favorite all-time parts, I think. But I'm looking forward to that. I think they're probably just going to continue to push Michael Burnham's character, back into the fold and make this a redemption story as far as she's concerned. They're probably going to slowly work her back in. Now it's going to be science specialist, and then Lorca's going to find some way to recommission her, and she's going to end up being a second officer or something. It's just going to continue down that road, which is fine if it's done well. But I'm not entirely convinced these writers are going to be able to pull that off. Yeah, but we'll see.
And I think we actually, as much as we were complaining about the internet ruining the spy thing, Edric on the chat room said, "Ah, I liked Ash."
Me too.
You were meant to.
He also said he and Lorca training was cool. Aside from being on holodeck, the fact that it is the coolest game of laser tag I've ever seen was nice. To a point where they even had like the little, you got 24 kills on your gun. Woo! John just posted here too. I haven't even read it yet. Will Ash Voke, he's now using the hyphen, turn to the Federation after being around humans and the like, even though he ate Captain Georgiou? I don't know. That's a good question. I do like the fact that Cole or Carr or House of Cole or whatever the hell that guy's name is taking what Voke was trying to do and actually doing it in a way that Voke would not appreciate. He's just basically divvying out cloaking devices for anyone who does his bidding. And so I think sooner or later Voke and him are going to have to come to a head. And I never thought about that, John, but I could potentially see Voke switching sides. But I don't know. I don't know, like much Kevin said, I don't know if the writers could pull that off. I am going to agree with Kevin on the fact that Michael's going to continue to climb the ranks again. I think she'll be lieutenant by episode 9. And I'm interested to see what happens with her and Saru, because sooner or later, Lorca's got to be taken down. Because this episode was, up until this point, you could almost defend Lorca and say, well, he's been through war and this is what you do. But he committed treason this episode by sending his admiral off, knowing that the reason why he's sending her off was because if he doesn't send her off, she will take away his command. So Lorca is not redeemable now for me. So sooner or later, Lorca's got to be taken down. And the big question is, and we kind of got a hint of this when Saru and Michael were talking in the last episode, is Saru trying to be a captain? Does Michael help him be the captain, much like she's trying to help Tilly? Or does she overpass him and become the captain? I would honestly like her to support Saru and make that her character, that she isn't ready for command and she knows that this time, and she's going to support the person who should be in that chair. But I also think it could be easily that she's going to be in the captain's chair before it's all said and done. And the only other thing we had was the mirror universe. I don't think it's the mirror universe. For one, and this is meta stuff, but we had a picture in one of the magazines that had Isaac's sitting in the command chair, and behind him is the plaque that says ISS Discovery. So sooner or later, the ISS Discovery will show up, but it hasn't yet. So we are not in the mirror universe yet. What else we got, guys?
Discovery is in the mirror universe.
But at that point, it would say on the Discovery, ISS Discovery. And
no, I'm saying we're following the Discovery from the correct universe, but it is currently in. Conspiracies everywhere, man.
Oh, that could be interesting. It got sucked in during one of the spore jumps. Yeah. Interesting.
Thought.
And now we found out when the enemies shoot those little stupid pylons in the Discovery, you could kill some jogging Starfleet officers too. I hate those little pylons. I hate them with a passion.
I still don't get the point of the spinning saucer. But...
it looks pretty, but it is the stupidest design I've ever seen.
It's really bad.
John says, I like John, by the way. I think Lorca would be okay with Ash Voke having eaten Georgiou. I think, Lorca would be okay with eating Georgiou. Potentially. I think Lorca's okay with eating a lot of things if it gets him where he wants to go. Anything else we're missing, guys, that we want to hit on before we close this thing down?
I don't think so. I think, as I say, to me, right now, I still think Lorca is more of a sympathetic character. But
it's because you're evil, Mike.
I didn't think he was sending the Admiral off quite maliciously to die, but I think he was probably like, "Oh, good, an opportunity to maybe."
That's malicious. That's malicious.
Well, but what are you gonna say? Like,
clearly left her there.
And he
could have gone.
Yeah, and Saru points it out too. Saru's like, any other time you break the rules. What the hell? No, this time we're following the rules. Is this chick
okay. I actually kind of forgot about that scene here.
Because she pointed out that I did not have sex with her.
I thought your problem was that he let her go on the mission because she was going to do that regardless.
No, she wasn't. It was his idea.
Well,
Michael said we can't. There's not enough time to meet with the Klingons now, and Lorca's like
filled her in on what was going on, and she made all right
because he is evil.
Not going to rescue her. All right.
Yeah, Saru's like, dude, any other time, I don't care. I mean, you would go rescue your Tribble if he was captured, but you're not going to go rescue an admiral. No, let's just wait for orders.
I could almost feel like Saru was like, all right, cool, you're going to follow the rules now. That's good on you, because he walked away. Like
if he only knew.
Yeah, well.
And John did mention too. Did you notice that Lorca was armed when Saru was at the door? Yeah, because the director made sure we noticed. Because he took the camera and panned it in really close and said, "Look, there's a gun." But yeah. It was
right. Listen, Mirror Universe Saru is going to be the Predator.
Nice.
I know. I know. All right.
You are one ugly mother. Okay. So you can find us at the Front Row Movie Reviews at gmail.com.
Right here. Watch us.
You can also find us on the web at thefrontrowmoviereviews.com. We are obviously here every Sunday night as soon as I can get my CBS stream and not jack up to review these episodes. And we really love the comments in the chat room. John, Edric, and Claire, thank you very much for taking part in the episode. It's much more fun when we got some other people telling us how
for participating in a constructive way.
Yes. The other guy wasn't here this week, so no sexism or racism. So we're doing good for YouTube. But yeah, then please, if you're checking us out on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and give us a like and share. And then if you're listening to us on the podcast, which drops on Monday mornings, you can subscribe to us there. And also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, please give us a rating and a review. We appreciate the reviews. We appreciate the feedback, but also your ratings and reviews move us up that little search engine ticker so more people can hear us. And we aren't doing this just for fun. We want to have people involved. So until next week when we deal with cause and effect, because we haven't done that 15 times in Star Trek and Groundhog Day and Live, Die, Repeat, or whatever the hell that movie's called. That was really good.
But this time it's only 30 seconds, so it's okay.
That was a good movie. Also, there is an episode of SG-1 that is the Groundhog Day premise, and it is one of the best episodes in the entire series. So
yeah, that's true. I love that episode.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for Kelsey Grammer to show up next week. That's what I want.
Dude, I would be so happy.
I want the Bozeman to be a part of this episode. That's what I want. Continuity be damned. Bring the Bozeman on.
He's going to look a lot older, though.
He's going to look like Beast. That's how that works, right?
Yeah.
There was an X-Men meet Star Trek comic book. It wasn't good at all.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you want to talk about all the other Star Trek meets comic books that have happened over the years? Because there have been several.
That's a rabbit hole. No.
I hear the Doctor Who one was actually pretty good. Okay. Until next time, I've been Scott, and with me has been
Mike
and Kevin.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will be back here next week, same bat time, same bat channel, to talk about episode 7. Only 3 more episodes left until the hiatus. So we'll see what happens next. Until next time, live long and prosper, and Katras don't work that way.